Mark Messier is known as the Moose and the Messiah, two nicknames that tell you everything about how scary he was on the ice and how much his teams loved him. He won 6 Stanley Cups and is the only player to captain 2 different teams to championships. While other great players were known for scoring goals or making fancy plays, Messier was different. He would do anything to win. Score big goals, deliver bone-crushing hits, or fight anyone who messed with his teammates. Before we dive deeper into the story of Mark Messier, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. It really helps us keep bringing you amazing stories about hockey's greatest legends. And trust me, this story has everything. Championships, incredible guarantees, and moments that changed hockey forever. Now, let's see how a young kid from Edmonton became the most feared captain in NHL history. Today, we remember him as one of hockey's greatest leaders. But back in 2024, even new hockey fans still talk about his famous guarantee in 1994. Down 3-2 in a playoff series against the Devils, Messier promised New York Rangers fans they would win Game 6. He didn't just talk, he scored 3 goals in the third period to win the game. The Rangers went on to win their first Stanley Cup in 54 years. But how did a kid from Edmonton become one of hockey's most legendary captains? How did a player who started in a struggling hockey league turn into the second highest scorer in NHL history? This is the story of Mark Messier, the player who changed what it meant to be a hockey leader. Mark Messier hockey story started in Edmonton, Alberta, where the sport wasn't just a game, it was a way of life. Born on January 18, 1961, Mark grew up watching his father, Doug Messier, play and coach professional hockey. The rink became his second home as he spent countless hours skating and practicing with his father's teams. Unlike many future NHL stars, Messier's path to professional hockey wasn't smooth or typical. He didn't play in major junior hockey leagues for very long. Instead, at just 15 years old, he played for the Spruce Grove Mets, a team coached by his father. The next year, he jumped to the St. Albert Saints, where he put up 74 points in 57 games. Not amazing numbers for a future superstar, but enough to show his potential. What made Messier different was his size and strength at a young age. While other players focused on fancy stick handling, Messier worked on becoming physically stronger. He learned the game's tough side from his father, who taught him that hockey wasn't just about scoring goals. It was about making your teammates better and being tough when games mattered most. In 1978, at age 17, Messier tried out for the Indianapolis Racers of the World Hockey Association WHA. The WHA was trying to compete with the NHL at the time. He played only 5 games there before joining the Cincinnati Stingers. This unusual start actually helped Messier. He learned to play against grown men, while most players his age were still in junior hockey. The biggest break in young Messier's career came when the Edmonton Oilers selected him in the 1979 NHL entry draft after the WHA-NHL merger, following his brief time with the Indianapolis Racers of the World Hockey Association. The Oilers were building something special, with a young Wayne Gretzky already on the team. Messier wasn't the most talked about prospect. His junior numbers weren't amazing, and scouts weren't sure if he would become a star. But the Oilers saw something others missed. A tough, natural leader who would do anything to win. During his early days in Edmonton, Messier lived with a local family and trained harder than ever. He wasn't the most skilled player on the team, but he was determined to become someone his teammates could count on. This early period shaped Messier's understanding of what it meant to be part of a team, lessons that would make him one of hockey's greatest leaders. When Messier joined the Edmonton Oilers in 1979, nobody knew they were watching the start of hockey's greatest dynasty. At first, he wasn't even a center. The Oilers played him on the wing, but what made Messier special wasn't just his playing position, it was his presence. In a locker room with Wayne Gretzky, hockey's most skilled player ever, Messier brought something different: raw toughness and a will to win that scared opponents. The Oilers of the 1980s changed hockey forever. While Gretzky dazzled everyone with his scoring, Messier did the heavy lifting. If teams tried to rough up Gretzky, they had to deal with Messier, and nobody wanted that. In 1981-82, Messier showed he wasn't just a tough guy, scoring 50 goals and proving he could be a star scorer too. 1984 was when everything clicked. The Oilers won their first Stanley Cup, beating the New York Islanders, who had won 4 straight championships. During that run, Messier won the Conn Smythe Trophy as playoff MVP. He didn't win it for fancy plays, he won it by being the toughest player on the ice when games mattered most. The Oilers became unstoppable. They won 4 Stanley Cups in 5 years. From 1984 to 1988, though they missed out in 1986 when Smith's own goal against Calgary ended their quest. Each year, Messier got better. He wasn't just Gretzky's protector anymore, he became one of hockey's most complete players. He could score, pass, hit, and fight. Players around the league said checking Messier felt like hitting a truck. Then came 1988 when everything changed. The Oilers traded Gretzky to Los Angeles, a trade that shocked the hockey world. Most people thought the Oilers' dynasty was over. Instead, Messier stepped up. Now team captain, he led the Oilers to another Stanley Cup in 1990, proving they could win without Gretzky. The 1990 championship showed what made Messier special. The Oilers were down 2-1 in their first-round series against Winnipeg. Before Game 4, Messier gave a speech that fired up the whole team. They won that game, the series, and eventually the Cup. His teammate Glenn Anderson later said, "Mark didn't just talk about leadership, he showed it every shift." During his Edmonton years, Messier's numbers were amazing. 392 goals, 642 assists, and 1,034 points in 851 games. But numbers don't tell the whole story. He made the Oilers feel unbeatable. Players said having Messier in the room was like having an extra coach, except this coach would also go out and dominate on the ice. The end of Messier's time in Edmonton came in 1991. The team was changing, trading away their stars to save money. In October 1991, the Oilers traded Messier to the New York Rangers. Edmonton fans were heartbroken. Their captain, the last piece of the dynasty, was gone. But for Messier, this wasn't the end. It was the start of his next great chapter. He would go on to face his biggest challenge yet, trying to end the Rangers' 54-year Stanley Cup drought. During this time, Messier created something called the Leadership Index. It wasn't just about what players did on the ice, but how they acted in practice, in the locker room, and with their teammates. Many teams still use his ideas today to build team culture and develop leaders. When Messier arrived in New York in 1991, Rangers fans were desperate for a championship. Their team hadn't won the Stanley Cup since 1940, a 54-year drought that felt like a curse. The Rangers made Messier team captain right away, and he showed why in his first season, scoring 109 points and winning the Hart Trophy as league MVP. But regular season success wasn't enough. Rangers fans wanted the Cup, and in 1994, everything lined up perfectly. The Rangers finished first in the league, but the playoffs tested them like never before. In the second round against Washington, Messier told his teammates to follow his lead. He scored twice in Game 2, sending a message that these Rangers were different. Then came the moment that made Messier a New York legend forever. Down 3-2 in the series against New Jersey, with Game 6 on the road, Messier did something crazy. He guaranteed a win. The New York papers ran headlines like, "We'll win tonight." Most players would crack under that pressure. But with his team down 2-0 in Game 6, Messier backed up his words in the biggest way possible. He scored 3 goals in the third period, carrying the Rangers to victory. His teammates said they'd never seen anything like it. Their captain simply refused to lose. After winning Game 7, the Rangers faced Vancouver in the finals. Again, Messier stepped up. In Game 7, he set up the winning goal by Brian Leetch. When the final buzzer sounded, the curse was over. The image of Messier's huge smile as he lifted the Stanley Cup became one of hockey's most famous moments. But Messier wasn't done. He kept playing at a high level for years after the '94 Cup. In 1997, he signed with Vancouver as a free agent. While the Canucks years weren't as successful, Messier still hit major milestones. He became only the third player to score 600 goals and 900 assists. In 2000, he returned to New York for one final run with the Rangers. What made these years special wasn't just Messier's play, it was how he changed hockey culture. He showed that leadership wasn't just about giving speeches, it was about setting an example every day. If the team had a morning practice after a late game, Messier would be there first, showing young players what it meant to be a pro. Wayne Gretzky himself said, "Mark was the greatest leader in hockey history. Coming from the game's greatest player, that means something." Other players said Messier had a special way of knowing exactly what to say to each teammate. He could fire up a young player with confidence, or challenge a veteran to be better. Messier's impact went beyond his teams. He created the NHL Foundation Player Award, given to players who helped their communities. The Mark Messier NHL Leadership Award, created in 2007, honors players who show great leadership in hockey and life. When people talk about the perfect captain, they still point to Messier's example. The numbers from his Rangers years are impressive. 183 goals and 558 points in 698 games. But ask any Rangers fan about Messier, and they won't talk about numbers. They'll tell you about his guarantee, his Game 7 performances, and how he ended the 54-year curse. They'll tell you about the captain who changed everything. When we look at Messier's total impact on hockey, the numbers tell only part of the story. He finished his career with 694 goals and 1,887 points in 1,756 games, second only to Wayne Gretzky in NHL history. But unlike other scoring stars, Messier also had 1,910 penalty minutes, showing how he could dominate games with both skill and power. The way Messier played changed how teams looked at building their rosters. Before him, teams usually had scoring stars and separate tough guys. Messier proved you could be both. He scored 50 goals in a season, but also made opponents fear going into the corners with him. This combination made coaches rethink what they wanted in a top player. His playing style created a new term in hockey, power forward. While other players like Gordie Howe had combined toughness and scoring before, Messier made it his own thing. He would control games by being physical early, then score big goals late when other players were tired. Teams still look for players who can play like Messier, though few ever come close. In big games, Messier's impact was even more amazing. He scored 109 playoff goals and had 295 playoff points. Numbers that become more impressive when you realize how much harder scoring is in the playoffs. He won 6 Stanley Cups, and in each one, he had moments where he simply took over games through pure will. But perhaps Messier's most lasting impact is how he changed what leadership means in sports. Before him, most captains led quietly or just by playing well. Messier created the idea of the complete leader. He would challenge teammates in practice, stand up for them in games, and know exactly when to speak up or stay quiet. NHL teams started looking at leadership differently because of him. They realized a great captain needs to do more than wear the C on their jersey. The best example? When NHL teams have leadership problems today, you still hear people say they need a Messier-type captain. His influence goes beyond just hockey. Business schools have studied his leadership style. The story of his guaranteed win in the '94 playoffs is taught in management classes as an example of backing up bold words with action. Companies have hired him to speak about building winning teams. Even after retiring, Messier kept making hockey better. He pushed for rules to protect players from dangerous hits. Interesting, coming from someone known for physical play. He worked to grow hockey in new places, especially New York City, where he helped build rinks in areas that never had them. Today's NHL still shows Messier's influence. The Mark Messier Leadership Award isn't just another hockey trophy. It's become one of the honors players respect most because it represents everything that made him special. Skill, toughness, leadership, and making others better. Modern team captains like Sidney Crosby and Connor McDavid learned from Messier's example. They know being a leader means more than just scoring points. It means setting the tone in practice, standing up for teammates, and performing best when games matter most. Teams may never find another player quite like Mark Messier, but his blueprint for leadership continues to shape hockey's future. In his final NHL season with the New York Rangers in 2003-04, Messier showed he was special right until the end. At age 43, in his last NHL game, he scored a goal and got an assist, proving he could still play at a high level. The Rangers retired his number 11 jersey in 2006, and the Edmonton Oilers followed by retiring his number 11 in 2007, making him one of the few players honored by 2 teams. The Hockey Hall of Fame didn't make Messier wait. They inducted him in 2007, his first year of eligibility. During his Hall of Fame speech, instead of talking about his achievements, he spent most of the time thanking his teammates and family, showing the leadership style that made him famous. Outside hockey, Messier kept making an impact. He helped create the New York Police and Fire Widows and Children's Benefit Fund after 9/11. He also started programs to teach kids not just hockey skills, but life lessons about teamwork and leadership. In 2009, the NHL started including him in their NHL Leadership Camp, where he teaches young captains from around the league. Stars like Jonathan Toews and Alex Ovechkin have said his lessons helped them become better leaders for their teams. Today, Messier works as a hockey analyst, but his real legacy lives on in how teams build their cultures. When NHL teams draft players, they don't just look at skating and shooting. They look for Messier qualities like toughness, leadership, and the ability to make others better. The numbers, trophies, and Stanley Cups tell part of Messier's story, but ask anyone who played with or against him, and they'll tell you the same thing. There will never be another Mark Messier. In a sport that's all about team success, he showed that true greatness isn't just about what you do, it's about how many people you make better along the way. Mark Messier wasn't just a hockey player, he became the standard for what a leader should be. When you look at his whole career, the numbers are amazing. Second most points in NHL history, 6 Stanley Cups, and countless big moments. But numbers don't show what made him truly special. He changed what it means to be a captain in hockey. Before Messier, captains were usually the best players or the oldest veterans. After him, teams looked for players who could inspire others, lead by example, and perform best when everything was on the line. That's why, even today, almost 20 years after he retired, people still talk about finding the next Messier. But maybe there isn't supposed to be one. Maybe Messier showed us that great leaders don't need to be copied. They need to find their own way to make their teams better. In the end, Messier's real legacy isn't just in record books or highlight reels. It's in how he showed that true greatness in sports isn't just about personal success. It's about making everyone around you believe they can be great too. And in that way, there really will never be another Mark Messier. Thanks for watching this story about Mark Messier. If you enjoyed it, smash that like button and subscribe for more videos about hockey's greatest legends. Hit that notification bell to never miss an upload. See you in the next video, where we'll bring you another amazing story from NHL history.